All right, welcome everybody. Thank you for coming tonight. This is our last Skagit Land Trust Speaker Series talk for this season. I think it's our eighth one that we've done. And we have three presenters here tonight, and I will introduce them in a minute. But first, I will share a little bit about the Land Trust. A lot of you are probably familiar with us, but we are a 501c3 nonprofit that protects land in Skagit County and a little bit beyond Skagit County, actually. We are, we've been around since 1992, and we are very community oriented. We do a lot of outreach work with folks in the community. We do programming with youth. We do a lot of partner organization work with all kinds of wonderful partners, including Puget Sound Energy. And Rocio is here from Puget Sound Energy, and we're excited to have her. Our mission is to conserve wildlife habitat, wetlands, agricultural and forest lands, scenic open space, and shorelines for the benefit of our community and as a legacy for future generations. And we have helped protect over 11,500 acres here in the Skagit. I wanted to mention also that the lands that we conserve and protect have been inhabited and stewarded by Indigenous peoples since time immemorial, and we recognize and respect the inherent Indigenous and treaty rights of the Coast Salish people who have a deep and abiding connection to this place. Our first presenter tonight is Robert Walters. He is a community wildfire resilience specialist for Whatcom and Skagit Conservation Districts. That sounds like a lot of work, Robert. Two districts. He's been in his current position with the Conservation District since February of 2024. He also previously worked in water quality and wildfire preparedness for the San Juan Islands Conservation District from 2014 to 2018. He has also spent 25 years before that in residential, commercial, and modular construction. So, bit of a jack of all trades. And he was fortunate to spend portions of his younger life in Colorado, New Mexico, Wyoming, Nebraska, and many other beautiful Western lands. So he often found himself, he says, in the awe of the beauty of natural systems and their interactions. And Robert tries to be mindful of these systems in his everyday work. That's really well expressed, Robert. And fire is one of those systems that you're going to hear about tonight. So without further ado, I will turn it over to Robert, who has some slides to share. And take it away, Robert. Thanks again for being here.
All right, thank you. Good evening, everyone. Give me 1 second here to get my slideshow set up. And I'll get into how my diverse background kind of combines to help me be better at what I do nowadays. But the reason we're here tonight is to learn a little bit about the Wildfire Resiliency Program and what you can do to enhance the wildfire resilience of your property. And I'm using the Skagit Conservation District tag tonight because this is the Skagit Land Trust. But as Sarah mentioned, I do work for both conservation districts. And just a quick background on what is a conservation district. After the Dust Bowl, the 1930s, there was a national agreement that we were doing things wrong and needed to learn to do it better and to help our farmers be successful and to keep healthy soil, healthy water. So soil and water conservation districts were created. There are now over 3,000 offices nationwide. The Skagit CD staff works with private partners, local, state, federal, government, agricultural, environmental organizations, tribal concerns, and other conservation districts. The SCD is funded through grants, an annual native plant sale, and a state general fund money that requires a dollar for dollar match. That dollar for dollar match is when we come to our cost share programs, which a lot of our farm planning program does. They help people install best management practices on their properties. So again, we're getting healthier water, healthier soil, healthier people. We also have a program that works in riparian restoration. All 5 species of salmon return to the Skagit waters every year. So we have folks out there trying to help our streams and rivers be healthier for them when they get back. And our forestry program works with people across the county to preserve and enhance their forest resources. And we are kind of a wing of the forestry program in doing the wildfire resilience, which is why we're here tonight. But also want to tag that Skagit CD has an incredible educational program. If you check our website out, you'll frequently see adult education, youth education opportunities where our staff is out there sharing their knowledge and bringing in other subject matter experts to help folks learn more about the lands that we live on and how to interact better with them. Uh, Welcome to our wildfire risk reduction program. We have built this program on 4 tenets. The first being empowering of landowners. I am so sorry. I hit a button and it went the wrong way. Okay. The first one is empowering landowners by giving them tools, the resources, access to workshops and experts at those workshops to help them better prepare their homes and property for wildfire. We evaluate wildfire risk. We come out to individual homes. We work with neighborhoods. We work with other entities in the county, fire districts, with PSE to evaluate what the risk is in different areas of the county and to offer mitigation solutions for those risks. We support communities through wildfire planning and the Firewise USA program. I am the regional coordinator for Firewise for Whatcom and Skagit County, and we have 27 active communities between the two counties right now. We also help communities with planning fuels reduction. Communities, I just mentioned Shelter Bay. They had some large concerns about some common areas with overloaded fuels, and we helped write up a plan and help them execute getting those fuels reduced out there. And then finally, we engage our partners. We fully believe that shared expertise and collaboration always leads to a better outcome. So to start the night off, I want to go through some just basic fire science and terminology. So if I start getting off on a little fire nerd tangent, I'm not making you feel out of the conversation. So we're going to start with the basic fire triangle. We need 3 things for fire to happen. First thing is fuel, and that's anything that'll burn. It's the dry leaves and needles on and around your house, dead vegetation piles out on your property. Second thing we need is oxygen. Well, that's 20% of our atmosphere, as my 7th grade science teacher taught me. So it's pretty much always going to be there. And then, of course, heat or an ignition source. Natural sources can be lightning, or we have human sources, escape burn piles, tires, and chains from trailers. But wildfires will typically start due to a combination of a dry vegetation pile, hot conditions, also decreased relative humidity, and an ignition source. And then since we like triangles so much in the fire world, we decided to make a wildfire behavior triangle. And the factors that influence the wildfire behavior, first off, is the fuel. How much of that fuel is there? What kind of fuel is it? Where is it at? And how wet is it? Then the weather, wind, temperature, that relative humidity, the precipitation. This is pretty apparent. We don't worry about wildfire in Western Washington in November, but we do in July through September. And then finally, topography. That's the slope of the land around us. For every 10 degrees of slope increase, fire will double its rate of spread. So fire travels very fast uphill because it's preheating the fuels above it. And so they burn quicker and faster once the fire actually arrives. So these factors all work together and kind of dictate how a fire will move and behave and how intense it will get. Then we have ladder fuels. These are the fuels that will carry a ground fire to the treetops that leads to a crown fire. These crown fires are where we get high intensity fires, and this is where we have residents and communities that are threatened. And then our friends embers. These are the burning grass, leaves, twigs, pieces of bark, maybe structural debris from a house that caught on fire. These are the most common cause of home ignitions. Greater than 80% of homes that burn during a wildfire ignite due to ember ignition. Embers can extend fire lines by starting spot fires ahead of the main fire front, well ahead of the main fire front, making it difficult to contain and fight these fires. And they can be carried by more than a mile by the wind. A good example of this was 3 years ago now. A fire down on the Oregon side of the Columbia River had embers blown over 1.5 miles across the river and starting spot fires in Washington. Now, just a little on how these wildfires spread. Typically, we'll have a ground fire in these continuous fuels, whether that, again, is an escaped burn pile, a lightning start, a firework, some other kind of ignition cause. Then they'll find those ladder fuels, the low-lying branches, the understory vegetation that carries this fire up into the upper branches of the trees and becomes a crown fire. Now the wind blows the debris that is now embers ahead of that fire that land on the ground. They start a ground fire that find ladder fuels that climb up the tree that blow embers to somewhere else. So you can see it's a feedback loop that we really don't want to get caught in. And then a term that we use in wildfire is WUI, the WUI, and that is used to describe two sets of conditions. This is the wildland urban interface, and this is where we build our residences right up to the edge of the trees. We go in and we bulldoze everything down, build a development, but stop right at the edge of the tree so the whole development can feel like they live within nature. And then we've got the wildland urban intermix. It's usually outside of a main urban area. This is where we build houses among the forested trees. We carve out driveways and building lots instead of just knocking everything down and building a development. So now that we've got a little bit of a better understanding of the terminology that we throw around in this profession, we have witnessed and we all know, if you watch any news at all or have to close your windows because of smoke in the summertime, that wildfire in Western Washington is becoming an every year occurrence. Where it used to be an every now and then thing, let's watch Eastern Washington fires on the news, it's now happening in our own backyards. And you can see on this slide a list of fires that have happened over the past 8-9 years. And the past couple summers, it's been pretty hard to get over to Winthrop with the highways closed and having to go the long way. But there's many factors that we can look at that are contributing to the increased risk of wildfire here in Pacific Northwest Washington. And a lot of those are climate related. Our risk is increasing because our air temperatures are increasing. We have the heat domes, we have hotter, longer summers. During those summers, we have less rain. So ground soil moisture dries out, trees and vegetation dry out, become more flammable, easier to catch on fire with ignition sources. And another component of that is our snow is melting earlier. Our snowpack up in the Cascades is what kind of supplies the ground soil moisture for the summer months coming down. But when we have less of that snow in the mountains and that snow goes away quicker, we don't have that sustained moisture coming out of the hills. And these are actually local pictures that were taken just above Friday Creek in Skagit. And you can see the proof of what we're saying about the drier conditions and the trees dying from the top down. And these trees don't like the brown spots on them. It is a sign that they are not getting enough moisture from the soil they're in. They're being outcompeted, and they turn into highly volatile fuel pretty quickly. So, what is our biggest threat from a wildfire? Is this huge threatening wall of flame, like Hollywood tells us, that comes through and burns houses down? Actually, no. It's the small embers that ignite the things on or close to our homes that pose the biggest threat. A bunch of little embers together can do a whole lot of damage. I'm going to share this video with you. It's about 4 minutes. There's no narration. There's some background sound, but I'm going to explain to you what it is now. It is a factory in North Carolina where they build houses and burn them down on purpose to see how and why. So they can study building materials, landscaping materials, building construction methods. And they've taken this house and they've used some what we consider fire-resistant materials and some what we consider traditional non-fire resistant materials, cedar shake roof, vinyl gutters as opposed to metal gutters, and wood siding as opposed to fiber cement siding, and then landscaping with gravel as opposed to landscaping with shrubberies and bark mulch. And they have a machine that simulates an ember storm, which is what happens during a wildfire, high intensity wildfire. It's throwing embers at this house, and then they take time to watch what happens to the different sections of the house depending on what it's made out of and what's landscaped around it. So I'll hit play, and again, it's a little bit over 4 minutes. So you can see the two different types of roofing there from above.
Yep.
I like to pause the video here just so everybody can read that because I've gotten feedback before that the video is quite dramatic and that ember shower is not typical of what might happen during a wildfire. But wildfire experts from the Forest Service, the International Association of Fire Chiefs have all said that is realistic. That is what happens during a high intensity wildfire. So, and I will move to the next slide. So we see what embers and fire can do to a home. And then we see this picture of this house in Colorado from 2012. Can this home survive this fire? Well, first, let's start off by realizing the best practice for homeowners is to improve their defensible space via improvements in the home ignition zone. This is what the NFPA calls it. I wish they would change it to home ignition zones because we are actually talking about three zones here. You'll see the immediate zone, which is at 0 to 5 feet. It counts the house and the materials on the house, and then everything surrounding it for the first 5 feet. Then we go intermediate zone out to 30 feet, where we talk about vegetation choices and placement. And then extended zone out to 100 feet, where we talk about outbuildings, ladder fuels, tree pruning, things like that. But let's look at that first zone, the immediate zone. This first 5 feet should be a non-flammable zone, and we advise that you consider the following recommendations. In the first 5 feet around your house, let's clear all debris, especially the dry, dead stuff that catches fire real easy. Remove wood chips and mulch. They are highly flammable and they have a place in landscaping, but just not right up against our house. Let's make sure that our vents have 1/8 inch screen vents or smaller. The video did have a misprint there. It said that the attic space had 1/8 inch vents, but were actually 1/4 inch vents in those gable vents in the video, and 1/8 inch is the recommendation. And then keeping our gutters and roofs clean. It's more than just for fire prevention. It's good home maintenance, but it's also a key component in being ready for wildfire with your home. And then we go out from that 5 to 30 feet. And again, this is where we talk about vegetation choices and how we place that vegetation. We call it the lean, clean, and green zone. We want everything to be alive and vibrant. We want a well-kept lawn. Grass is mowed to 4 inches or less. Trees and large vegetation, we want to place those greater than 10 feet from the house. We don't want to let the branches grow so that they're overhanging the house. We want to put space between our trees and larger vegetation. We call it clumping. So you have a fire break basically between large sections of vegetation. And then using hardscaping, non-combustible landscaping, rockeries, gravel pathways, things like that to break up the path of travel for fire. Again, if fire starts on the ground, we want it to stay on the ground and not travel through ladder fuels up into the crown. Then going out into that extended zone, out to 100 feet from the home, we want to look at eliminating the ladder fuels, connectivity between a possible ground fire and those higher branches. Be aware of the embers becoming crown fires because of climbing up through there. So again, we're just cutting the fuse, removing the pathway for fire to travel. And in many instances, this may include your neighbor's property. So you take wildfire mitigation up to your fence line, then you extend a hand of friendship and hope it's received and reciprocated. And then we can all work together towards creating an ignition resistant community. This is a Firewise USA image that we use here. And again, we do promote the Firewise USA program. It is a recognition program, but more of a framework for communities to work together to combat their common wildfire risks. So we see here, not only could that house survive a wildfire, it did. And you can see the fire burned all around it. And if you were able to zoom in, you'd see the hardscaping and the break-in patterns. The bottom 3 feet of the house is metal, non-combustible decking, metal railings on the deck. So there's all kinds of things that they did that were right that allowed this house to survive that wildfire. Now, here in Pacific Northwest Washington, a lot of people are afraid we're going to come out and tell them that you need to cut down all your trees and pull out all your shrubs. That's just not true. It doesn't have to look like a moonscape in order to be fire resistant. This is, well, Rocio, one of your neighbors in Sudden Valley, actually. This is a person that we worked with there that changed their landscaping way of doing things, and they have a beautiful, vibrant, healthy yard with a lot of native fire-resistant plants. So the next steps that we can do to help you as residents of Skagit County, we do offer free individual wildfire risk assessments where myself or my colleague Alexis would come out. We spend about 30 to 45 minutes walking around your home with you. We identify ignition vulnerabilities on and near the home. Then we write up a report that details those ignition vulnerabilities and offers mitigation solutions for each one. If you have a group of people or a whole neighborhood that are interested in looking at your overall neighborhood level risk, we do those assessments as well. And then we also guide people through the Firewise USA program and a new program we are just launching in both conservation districts called Community Wildfire Ambassadors. That is I describe it as a networking program for those resident leaders within communities that are working to reduce their wildfire risk. And I like to give a little blurb about emergency notification. We do not shelter in place for wildfire. We take all these fantastic actions to enable our house to survive in a wildfire, but we get the heck out. So fire officials will decide when and where to evacuate based on the fire intensity, wind, and the terrain. The emergency notification is Skagit ready. In my next slide, I have some information on that. There's also an iPause alert system that works a lot like the Amber Alert. If you're in an area and there's an emergency in the area, it gets broadcast out to everybody. If you are happen to be evacuating during a wildfire, please remember that sheriff's deputies and public works people in bright colored vests will be providing traffic control. Firemen are there to fight the fire. Please don't ask them which way to turn. There will be somebody soon in a bright vest to let you know. And I will leave this slide up just for a few seconds. If you want to scan that QR code, oh, of course. If you want to scan that QR code, it will take you to the Skagit Ready website so that you can register for emergency notifications. And those notifications will let you know what's going on in your neighborhood, no matter where you're at. So if you go on vacation to Florida, you're going to get notified that something's going on in your neighborhood back home. And then finally, there is my contact information as well as my colleague Alexis. And also encourage you to visit our website, skagitcd.org/wild-fire. Not sure why the hyphen's in there, before my time when it was invented. So on our website page there, we have lots of resources. There's also a link where you can click to sign up for one of those free wildfire risk assessments, or feel free to call myself or Alexis or email either one of us. And that is all I have. I will stop sharing.
Oh, thank you so much, Robert. That was great. And as I said earlier in the session, we're going to save our questions to the end. So if you have questions, burning questions for Robert right now, you can put them in the chat, send them to me or all of the hosts, either way, and I will get to them later in the session. But next, we have a landowner perspective from very good friend of Skagit Land Trust, Ginny Darvill. Ginny is a conservation easement holder who has conserved 30 acres of forest through land trust conservation easement. And that includes a public trail into Little Mountain Park. So an area that is vulnerable to fire. And Ginny will share her experience with fire prevention strategies and tips that she's implemented to protect her own home, which is vulnerable due to its forested location. And I will share Ginny's photos as well. But Ginny, go ahead and introduce yourself if you would like.
Hi. I have lived here on the south side of Little Mountain for 50 years now. And I have to say that when I moved here, wildfire was something that happened in eastern Washington. And we didn't think about it. And so I married a conservation aficionado who loved trees. And when I moved into this house, he had not cut any trees except for the road up to the house and the actual footprint of the building. So there were trees that were actually leaning on the deck. And we really didn't think about wildfire back then. And so little by little, the story here is that over the years, we've done things, whether we thought about wildfire or not, they were helpful in terms of protecting the house. And then, of course, with the change in the climate, we see the trees dying, and we see the weather changing. And so with the public trail that we have going across the property, I've seen an enormous increase in people using that trail. And sometimes, not so much recently, but I have seen piles of cigarette butts at the end of the road. There's a place where about 5 cars can park to access that trail. And when I put up a no smoking sign, metal no smoking sign, it was torn down. So, yeah, and sometimes you hear in the middle of the summer, you hear firecrackers. And so I have increasing reasons to worry about fire. the house now doesn't look anything like that ideal house and surroundings that Robert just showed us. But I do have a copy of that, and I am using it in my thinking. So when I first moved in, there was ivy growing up the side of the house. There were trees that were actual big cedar trees that were overhanging the house. The firewood was stacked at the end of the house against the wall. And so this is what it looks now like, right? It's not 5 feet, it's probably 3. But it's as close as I could get to the wonderful rhododendrons. We have lost a number of those to the climate change, but if anything happens to this one, it won't be replanted. But and I had the firewood is maybe 15, I don't know for exactly how many feet from the house, but that was something that I added. One of the things that we did was to replace the shake roof with composition shingles. In the 80s, we began to get a little more aware of how close the forest is, and you can see this is the back of the house. One of the things that is my project right now is to you can see how that dogwood tree is overhanging the house. I've just been dealing with a tree expert, a tree service, and I have a friend and worker who helps me with the outside, with the trails and the roads and the outside work. And the two of them are working together right now to limb up the big trees and cut down the small trees and thin the forest and limb the big trees around the house. And you can also see that I need to get the roof cleaned. And those are my 2 projects right now. On the right of the screen, you can see that I cleared in front of the house, partly for sunlight, partly because I had put in solar panels. And that was done long enough ago that you can see on the right that the trees that were as big as the ones in the background have now begun to be replaced by the new growth trees in the clearing. So unfortunately, I think those are going to go too, because we've decided to cut them rather than when they're easy to cut, rather than to let them grow. So yeah, I'm continually thinking about it because I have a small cabin in Stehekin, and maybe some of you know that that is a place that has suffered greatly recently from wildfire and the aftermath of the wildfire, which leads to landslides, the last disastrous flooding, and bringing landslides and much destruction to that area. Fortunately, my little place was not harmed, but it makes one very, very aware of the possibilities. So, yeah, with what's written there on the screen, you can kind of see that's about what I've done. But it is dramatic to me, the difference in awareness, at least on my part. And my husband, who built the house, has been gone now almost 20 years, and I've in that time, I've become really more and more aware, I think, as we all have, of the possibility of wildfire happening here. And these are kind of the things that I'm doing and working on at my place. It still may be an example, a good example of bad examples, but I do live in the forest, and I love living here. I think that's about it.
Well, thank you so much, Ginny. It's just lovely to have you here and have some really concrete examples that people can walk around their own house and check out and figure out what they can do. Um, and I'm now going to introduce you to Rocio Castillo-Foell. So Rocio is the manager for Puget Sound Energy's Northern Territories. I think it's community relations manager. I think I might have cut off a piece of her title by accident on the slide. Rocio is a bilingual community leader with experience across healthcare, social services, and the energy sector. Her academic background includes a master's in public health, and she is a certified master health education specialist. That's really interesting. At PSC, Rocio develops strategic partnerships with community organizations to advance clean energy initiatives and sustainable development. She leads community education efforts on emerging utility topics, such as wildfire prevention. And that's one reason she's here with us tonight, to help our community be prepared, informed, and know how to respond to emergencies in collaboration with all of the professionals who are working to manage things like wildfire in our community. She serves as one of PSC Foundation's liaisons to align funding with community needs as well. She is also a wife and mother of two who enjoys exploring the Pacific Northwest outdoors in her free time. So, Rocio, if you want to say hi, and I will pull up your slides next.
Yeah, thank you so much, Sarah. Good evening, everyone. While Sarah pulls my slide deck, I'm going to say hello to you all. My name is Rocio Castillo-Foell. I'm the Community Affairs Manager for the Puget Sound Energy. And as Sarah mentioned, I serve in the Northern Territories, which means that I cover the community affairs, the public relationships in Whatcom, Whitby, and Skagit. And I'm here to talk about what PSC is doing to prevent wildfires and ensure that we keep our communities safe. So we are going to be focusing on the presentation. Towards the end, maybe we can focus on some questions that you might have. So thank you, Sarah. Let's go with the next slide. At PSC, we always start our presentation with a safety moment. As I'm going to be talking to you about wildfire prevention, I have an application to keep in mind. Watch Duty is a great application that you can get on your phones or in your computers. Watch Duty provides real-time wildfire information and alerts to the public. This application in specific utilizes a combination of official data sources and human monitoring by experts. Most of them are volunteers, including active and retired firefighters, dispatchers, and first responders. Through this application, you can be informed about the fires that might be happening in your community. As well, you're going to be able to get some resources available in case of an evacuation. So please keep this application in mind. And with that, next slide. Thank you. PSC takes a holistic approach to the evolving risk of wildfires in our state by operating and improving our infrastructure to create an electric system that's reliable, resistant, and most importantly, safe. PSC's wildfire risk management program includes our or year-round work to prevent wildfires by, number one, investing in projects to strengthen our infrastructure. We're also utilizing tools and new technologies to enhance our situational awareness. In addition, we are monitoring in real time weather conditions and operating the electric system at different levels of sensitivity to prevent wildfires. In addition to what I have already mentioned, we are glad to say that we're partnering with emergency responders, local organizations, and our customers to build more resilient communities. So that's why I'm very happy to be here partnering with the Land Trust and the Conservation District, and also with all of you and Ginny. And I applaud that you're here learning about how to prepare. All right, next slide. So how does this holistic approach looks like in the community? Well, first of all, we are replacing and upgrading equipment, including replacing poles, installing 3-wires. I want to be talking about 3-wire in specific in the next few seconds. And on top of that, we are strategically undergrounding power lines. We do regular vegetation management, which includes trimming or removing any trees and vegetation that grows too close to the power lines. And we do this quite regularly. And another thing that I want to mention is that our crews very often are just patrolling, right? Reviewing like any potential damages of the power lines that might have occurred during winter storm season. And in general, we are mandated to be constantly performing maintenance in preparation for the wildfire season. Next slide. In addition, we continue to invest in top-notch tools to enhance our situational awareness. This includes real-time forecasting tools and fire risk modeling software. We also have a network of weather stations in targeted areas to provide more detailed information about the current weather conditions. 2 years ago, PSC hired a meteorologist who works quite a lot, to be honest with you. He provides daily weather updates to our internal team. And we have artificial intelligence power smoke detecting cameras for rapid detection and fire suppression. We also have drones that can help us to enhance inspection, operations, and the restoration efforts. And the last few months, we got these devices, like the picture that is shown here. These devices are called grid scopes, and essentially are like small monitors that are helping us to keep an eye on the grid in real conditions. Next slide, please. In terms of investments that is helping us to ensure that our community continue to be safe, especially during the wildfire season, I have to say that PSC has invested nearly 85 million in grid strengthening projects and about 5.7 million in situational awareness tools, demonstrating that we are committed to ensure the safety of our communities. As you can see here, by now we have about 17 artificial intelligence smoke detecting cameras, and we have also a total of 40 weather stations and so far 960 grid scope devices. Next slide. So some of you might be wondering about the investments made in Skagit County to strengthen the grid. So we're going to be spending a few minutes on this. Next slide, please. So we're doing some undergrounding to minimize outages and increase reliability in some susceptible areas. We're also replacing a regular wire with 3-wire in those power lines when undergrounding is simply not possible. So as you can see here, when I have more than 20 projects that are going to be constructed in eastern Skagit, specifically around the Highway 20. And for some of you who might not be familiar with what is a 3-wire or how it looks like, I have an image for you in the next slide. So this is the image. Essentially, like the 3-wire is like a special wire that has like an additional cover that is going to add additional insulation to the power line. So let's say that it's super dry outside and super windy, and a branch ends up on the power line. So if that situation happens, the power line can end up sparking and beginning like the ignition of a potential fire. So the 3-wire, or the right terminology or the right name, is the cover conductor. So it's much more resistant, and therefore if a tree branch ends up on the power line, actually it's not going to initiate a fire, because it's way more resistant than the regular wire that we could utilize before we are actually getting more active in preparation. Next slide, please. So between 2024 and 2025, we have replaced, let me think for a second, like about 94 poles within the concrete area. And we are going to continue working on several projects within the next few years. And so most of those projects that are going to be around like strengthening the grid and ensuring that we can continue offering reliable services are going to be completed by 2028. And this project, excuse me, here is a typo. These projects will improve electric reliability and reduce wildfire risk. Next slide, please. Some of you might be living, you have your house, your residency in concrete or in Skagit. So some of you or your neighbors or your family members are going to be receiving a postcard that looks like this one right here, where we are going to be informing you about the project that we're doing in the area. You're going to find the reference project number. You're also going to find the project manager. So if you have any questions about what's happening in your area, feel free to always give us a call, or I also want to provide you my information at the end of the presentation. Feel free to contact me. We want to be very transparent on what we're doing in the community, because we are really investing in ensuring that our communities have reliable services. Next slide, please. So during the wildfire season, we may operate our electric system in a more conservative way to help prevent wildfires. These measures can result in power outages that could last several hours to several days, and we want you to be prepared. So I have here that PSC is going to be declaring the wildfire season time. Essentially what this means is that we are going to be identifying the time frame where potentially is going to be an increase in the risk to have wildfire activity. With the weather changing, the climate change happening, this could change like in the future. But for now, when we talk about wildfire season, we're talking about like the months between May and September. This declaration also triggers more frequent situational awareness, tool monitoring, potential weather-related work restrictions, etc. And we're going to have two very important tools. The first one is the Enhanced Power Line Setting, EPS for short. And essentially, this is like a special setting that is going to allow us to turn the power off faster when there is a potential hazard in the line, like a tree branch. And this basically is going to help us to prevent sparks, but it may result in an unplanned power outage. The other one is the Public Safety Power Shutoff, PSPS for short. So when the conditions threaten our ability to safely operate the electric system, that means that it's very hot outside, it's super dry, we have like very windy conditions, we may proactively turn off the power to prevent wildfires. And we are going to be able to provide estimated restoration times through our outage map. So if you are not familiar with our outage map, please Google it, go to our website, PSC/outage map. You can save that link into your computer desk. Also, you can download the application. One more thing that I have to mention is that sometimes you could experience power outages when emergency responders are giving us a call to ask us to de-energize our system in particular areas to ensure public safety. That means like maybe they are going to be sending their staff to respond to active wildfire. Next slide. So once again, this is just to emphasize what an EPS means. Is a special setting that makes the power line way more sensitive, and therefore if a branch falls on top of the power line, that circuit that is feeding the electrons into that power line is going to close faster, and therefore we're going to avoid potential sparks and therefore a wildfire. So once again, you might experience, due to the sensitivity of the power line, you might experience major outages that are not planned in your area. Next slide. So specifically about public safety power shutoff, what to expect. So first of all, we will notify impacted customers and coordinate with emergency response partners in advance of the PSPS. And we want to provide updates throughout the outage and the restoration. After the critical weather has passed, our crews will inspect every line during the PSPS, during the area that has been affected for damage. And we want to make sure that everything is safe before we're able to restore power. This can take time, and well, this PSPS could last several hours or several days. That's why it's so important to prepare. So what to expect? Our goal is to notify you 2 days before the PSPS, but the weather can be unpredictable. So depending on the forecast that we have, we're gonna try to give you as much notice as possible. Customers with life support status noted in their PSC account will be receiving a phone call directly from our customer care team. They're gonna grab the phone and they're gonna call these customers. These customers are going to receive this call in addition to the regular customer notification in advance of a PSPS. Then we will send updates twice a day until the power is restored. And that is important to highlight that a PSPS could be used anywhere in our service area when conditions present a safety risk. So we're gonna play a 2 minutes video that is gonna help us to bring all these concepts together, and it's also gonna give us some additional tips. So Sarah, you can help me with that? Thank you.
When wildfire conditions become extreme, PSE may need to temporarily turn off power in targeted areas. It's called a Public Safety Power Shutoff, or PSPS, and it can help prevent wildfires from starting. In this video, we'll help you understand how to prepare, stay updated, and navigate a PSPS. If you're a PSE customer in an impacted area, you'll get notifications when severe weather conditions develop. PSE can contact you through phone, email, and text. To stay informed and get notifications the way you prefer, make sure your contact information is updated in your PSE account. If you have life support status on your account, customer care will also call you directly. Once you get a PSPS warning, it's time to prepare. Get the whole household involved. Review your emergency plan, know where your supplies are, and what each person will do if the power goes out. Charge phones, flashlights, electric vehicles, and medical devices. Check your emergency kit. Stock up on water, food, medications, pet supplies, and anything you need for a few days without power. Once the power is turned off, you'll get updates from PSE at least twice a day until power is restored. To keep cool while the power is out, close blinds and curtains to block direct sunlight. In the evening, open them back up for cross ventilation. And don't forget, check on your neighbors, especially those who might need extra help. We're all in this together. You can also visit pse.com to find nearby community resource centers. Once the weather event passes, you'll receive another notification, but it isn't over yet. PSE crews need to inspect the entire system and make any repairs before safely restoring power. Once we complete damage assessment, we'll be able to notify you of estimated time of restoration. You can also check for updates on the outage map. We can't control the weather, but we can control how ready we are. Visit pse.com to update your contact info, explore preparedness tips, and learn how PSE works to keep your community safe.
So remember, if you or someone in your family requires medical devices, please ask them to sign up for life support status. They can submit an application that is relatively simple, but I have to clarify something. The application that's basically you need to send us has to be filled out in collaboration with your medical provider. Can you give me the next slide, Sarah, please?
Mhm.
And if you feel like you need more support or you just really don't know how to start, you can always give us a call. You can utilize this phone number right here, the 1-888-225-5773. And I really, really want you to encourage your family, your friends, your team, your clients, yourselves to have an emergency plan and actually practice it. You can learn more about like different emergency kits at our website, but it's really, really important that you start doing something around preparing for potential emergencies and power outages. But remember, we live in this beautiful place in Earth that is prone to natural disasters. So please think about that as well. Next slide, please. All right. So update your information. Make sure that you have your PSE account up to date. And if you have a medical device, sign up for the life support status. You can give us a call to see if you qualify for that. Have a plan and supplies. Ensure that you visit the pse.com/PSPS to learn more about the information that I have presented to you. Or if you want to share this information with your neighbors and you want to share the specific website, please keep this in mind. And once again, I have to emphasize, in order for you to learn more about the restoration times, potential power shutoffs, current power outages, and or if you need to report an outage, go to pse.com/outages and bookmark that website, and also make sure that you download the application. Next slide, please. So take steps now to prepare for wildfire season. I know that probably right now doesn't feel like wildfire season, but wildfire season is around the corner. Here I live in Sunny Valley. It's actually snowing still, but it's the perfect time for start thinking about what we're going to be doing during the summer. Find resources for emergency preparedness at the redcross.org, and sign out for county emergency alerts, learn more about the neighborhood or community emergency response plans. Be aware of the weather, the potential burning restrictions, and any current fire activity or evacuation orders. Remember, earlier I showed you the watch duty application. And as Robert mentioned, at home, do some vegetation management on your property and report any trees near the power lines at pse.com/trees, and get your free wildfire ready action plan to make your home and your community more resilient by visiting the website that I have here, the wildfireready.dnr.wa.gov. And I think that's the end of my presentation. If you need more information, once again, pse.com/wildfire. It has multiple resources. And if you have questions or you want to, you want to invite me to present at your community, send me an email. Happy to do so. And thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much, Rocio. That was great. So many resources in there that people can turn to, and research that we can follow up on here. Lots of good links, and thank you so much. I will open it up for questions now, the time maybe some folks have been waiting for. We did have one good question in the chat already, and I think there are probably going to be a few more trickling in. But yeah, if you have anything, please post it to the chat now. McKenna Klein asks or says, I just got out of Pacific Salmon Foundation meeting about low-tech restoration, and one thing I'm trying to do is connect disciplines. So here is my question. Would Robert have any recommendations for firewise planting in restoration work? whether it's near water or not, like up in a prairie habitat. Maybe it's not a discipline that can really connect to being firewise, but I wanted to ask just in case, but because it seems likely that restorative watershed work should also have a hand in wildfire risk reduction. So,
Yeah.
Robert, let me know if you need me to repeat any of that, but
No, I think I can speak to most of it. And if I miss a part, maybe you can remind me. But I think it absolutely has a part to do it. As Sarah said in my introduction, I've always been fascinated by systems and how things work together. Well, when we are in fire systems, our plants, adapt over the millennia to live with fire. Not necessarily survive fire all the time, but they live with fire. They have fire adaptation. So if you're working in an area that has a historic fire regime, those native plants in there um, often will have some type of resistance. We do offer as a resource a list that we've kind of hijacked a little bit from Oregon State University's master list of fire resistant native plants for the west of the Cascades. And I'm I always let somebody with a lot more knowledge about gardening and plants and all that, but I know that a lot of our Northwest native plants are what we consider fire resistant because of um, the lack of resin inside of them, because of the branch structure, because of the type of foliage that they have. There's lots of different reasons. But I believe that like if we tend towards those type of plants where we're doing restorative work, look for what works on the landscape already, and it has the fire resistant properties. I think that can play an important part. And then spacing and planning for future growth, so we can have those possible separations in elevations of plants for limiting ladder fuel and connectivity.
you, Robert, that's a great answer. Uh, Folks, feel free to pop any questions in the chat for any of the three presenters. Now we've got about 20 minutes left, so if you've got anything you've been longing to ask, please feel free. I have a few questions as well. I was wondering whether there have been any, significant fires in our area, kind of closer maybe, and even in Skagit itself, that residents should be aware of as far as like do's and don'ts, like were there things learned from that experience or um, yeah, and also whether there are any particular neighborhoods that are at higher risk that, you know, this kind of education is particularly needed. So that's kind of two questions, but there you go.
Yeah, so kind of touching on the second part first. Actually, 2 days ago, the state forester signed the Skagit County Community Wildfire Protection Plan update. He'd had it for a few months. He finally got his signature on it. So it is now official, and it is going to be included as an appendix in the Natural Hazards Mitigation Plan update for Skagit County that is coming out in a few months. What that plan does is it goes through and analyzes a bunch of different inputs and identifies those areas of high risk in Skagit County. And as you can imagine, they're out on the coast and they're upriver. We've got the beautiful farmlands down between that have wildfire risk because of smaller clumps of grass or trees like that, but also there's a lot of response capabilities in those areas. So we don't consider them a lot of higher risk. But we've got areas out on the coast with the coastal forests, and then of course up the river and up in the hills that we put specific emphasis on doing our outreach and trying to help folks. So. And what was the first part? I'm sorry.
Oh, I was just wondering if there were any fires right in our
Yeah,
area in Skagit that people
right.
might not know about or
So we had like what I consider a significant fire for us back in 2024 on April 20th, I believe it was, and just outside of Lyman up Prevedale Road. It wound up burning just under 50 acres was the final footprint of it. And it started from an escape burn pile, and it was a legal burn pile. And when it was started that morning, it was sunny and no wind, just a calm day in April. But what a lot of local meteorologists and local firefighters, wildland firefighters will tell you is in this area, we have this weird kind of thing that happens about April, end of March into April, where our relative humidity drops here. It might seem moist because of what's on the ground from the winter, but the relative humidity in the air, and that's a significant driver in wildfire ignitions. So we had the lowered relative humidity, and then about 1 o'clock that afternoon, a wind came up, and it blew some of the debris from the fire up the hill, and it started some dry duff, and started climbing trees, and then the wind started swirling. They evacuated people. They got fire resources up there, um, and the all the firefighters involved say if the wind had not changed direction, it would have been a tragedy story. But the wind changed direction at the right time. They were able to contain that fire. They were up there putting hot spots out for about 26 days afterwards because our our forest floors are so deep with that duff. It's almost like a bog fire. When the fire gets down in there, you've really got to seek out every hot spot, or a little wind comes along and we get a restart. So the lesson from that is even if conditions look ideal for burning, tend your fire. Don't ever leave it untended. Have resources there to deal with it. A couple buckets full of water, that quick douse is very helpful. And then have hose resources there, but be prepared and capable of putting it out when that wind comes up.
Great advice. I would be scared to even have a burn pile myself. I love the trees too much. I just scared of it going awry. But we have another question from it looks like Dean. For big historical fires, there was the big burn between Conway and Freeborn area, exit 215, that happened in the late 1800s, early 1900s. I heard it was several hundred acres, if not 1,000 plus. So that's kind of a bit of history rather than a question, but I don't know if any of you are familiar with that one.
Local knowledge is always best.
Mhm. Yeah.
Yep.
Well, yeah, I'd be interested in learning more about it. We have a question as well for Rocio from Gregory. He has experienced power being turned off for hours before the weather events begin. So he was wondering why that is.
So before the weather event starts, we haven't deployed any public safety power shut-off in our territories ever. So that's a little bit strange. So I wonder if that was actually a scheduled outage to do some repairs or some strengthening of the grid. When that happens, we always going to notify our clients. We're going to send the postcard like the one that I showed earlier for people to be aware of the outages that have been scheduled. So I don't know specifically in which area Greg lives, but I'm more than happy to provide my contact information, put in the chat. But I will say that at the moment, I've been working with PSC for the last 3 years. And since we started with the wildfire risk mitigation program, we have not deployed or implemented a public safety power shutoff. So that's a little bit strange.
Good to know. Thank you. McKenna has another question. Just curious about thoughts on fireworks and what communities can do in terms of protecting their land and their forest land from fires and keeping homes from being destroyed by accidental firework displays gone awry. So any thoughts on that? Are there any discussions about that at the county level that you know of around fireworks regulation or?
I'm not aware of any discussions around regulations. I typically tell folks, a firework is a big shining example of an ember. So we do what we can to affect other people's behavior, but people are going to do what they're going to do. So we kind of take those mitigation actions again. If we don't, well, In my neighborhood, we don't celebrate the 4th of July. They seem to celebrate the July 2nd through July 9th. So I live in rural Whatcom County, and there are fireworks going off here for lots of reasons and excuses. Um, but maybe during that time period, we take extra precautions, like we go ahead those flammable cushions on our deck furniture, our flower baskets that are hanging underneath our wooden eaves on our house. We relocate those during that period of time. We take extra precautions um, for ember awareness around our house during that time.
Great. It looks like we have a question from Cindy.
Oh, hi. Thank you.
Hand up.
Yeah, thank you so much. I tried to type it and it's for some reason it's not going through to you, Sarah. Sorry about that.
Okay. Well, if anyone else is having that problem, just feel free to put your electronic hand up and I'll unmute you.
Appreciate it. Maybe this is for Robert. I'm not sure. So I live on second growth forest. It's mixed. A lot of the maples, a lot of the fir and cedar were cut like 100 years ago, kind of old school, you know, with the big old saws and everything. And then I've got, you know, these maples that have taken over. And so now with the big rains and the, you know, the changing climate and everything, a lot of trees down, which is not unusual, but you know, I've got like a fuel issue, I think, right? I've got a combination of big down maples. Some of them are now bringing down the cedars and the firs, and then they're competing for the water, as you pointed out. The stuff around my house is okay, but I really like to manage for wildlife. I also am keenly aware of climate and other issues. And so the question is, you know, how much of that, when you talk about fuel, how much of that stuff, you know, really needs to come out off the ground? And also with a lot of, you know, mulch now from so many, you know, years of leaves falling from the maples, is mulch a good thing or a bad thing for fire? Thank you.
That's one of those questions I like to answer with this. How long's a piece of string? It's going to depend on that piece of string, which piece of string it is. You know, a lot of things to speak to there. First of all, the thing I always tell people if they have, you know, property or acreage is, what are your management goals? And they can be multiple. All right. So let's start with your management goals all for the property. And now let's start with go back to the house and work for safety. So as far as mitigation for the structure, we go out to 100 feet, and there's scientific reasons for that. They've taken out sections of the boreal forest where they set it on fire and they set up house walls at 30, 60, and 100 feet. And at 100 feet, there's just not enough radiant heat or flame contact, even with 40-mile-an-hour winds, to catch that wall on fire. So that's why we work out to 100 feet to keep fire low and on the ground out to 100 feet. So those home ignition zones I talked about, nothing combustible in the first 5 feet, 30 feet, spacious, lean, clean, and green. And then we work on the ladder fuels and the connectivity and the health of the trees. So that would be the other thing is because you have a successional forest going on, and depending on what your management goals are for the next 30 years in that forest, how we treat the detritus on the forest floor can vary. Whether it's removal, whether it's maintaining, whether it's a combination. You know, to put a plug in for our forestry department, our program, I would advise that you get on our website and put in a site request for Nick Kunz, our stewardship forester, our award-winning stewardship forester, I'm going to add, and have him maybe take a look at the property. And he can deal with the forest and the biomes and everything you want to do out there. And then I'm happy to come out and take a look at the structure and give you some advice in that fashion.
That's super. Thanks. Thanks so much.
Yep.
Thanks, Robert, and thanks, Cindy, for your question. I see another mention here, a historical fire from Dean here. There was also the 1701 fire that burned from Shelton to Port Angeles, from the beach to the tree line of the mountains. Forest fire experts looking at the burn scars left on stumps suspect that 25% of the lowland Puget Sound forest burned that summer. Wow, that is a huge fire. Oh my goodness, I will definitely be looking that up. Thank you, Dean. We are getting close to the end here, so if anyone else has a question, please pop it in the chat now or raise your digital hand. I wanted to ask, I know you've all covered quite a few tips and ideas for homeowners and just community-minded folks who want to prevent fire. And I just wondered, are there like, what are some of the easiest things people can do, or the least expensive things that people can do to, like, what would be their first step, for protecting their home or their community from fire risk?
The three most vulnerable portions of a home are the roof, the deck, and the fence. And I'll go backwards. The fence, people are like, what? Well, a fence is a fuse, especially a wooden fence is a fuse. So if you have a really long fence that starts in one corner of your yard and that's where it catches on fire, it's got a fuse all the way to the corner of your house where it's attached. So something simple you can do there is the last section of fence that attaches to your house, replace with steel. You use a metal gate, something that doesn't burn, to put a break in that fuse. Sometimes I try to be comical and explain it as the roadrunner and the coyote. The coyote's trying to get the fuse to go, and the roadrunner's just going to take the scissors out and cut it. So that's what we're doing. Then looking at the decks, the type of deck that you have. If you have a wooden deck, it's not the end all of everything, because it's hard to get a flat, well-maintained piece of wood to catch on fire. You have to have the tinder and the kindling around it, which is the stuff in the cracks. It's the stuff between the wall and the deck up against the house, that the needles and the leaves and stuff that will catch fire and then spread to the deck, because the deck then has enough radiant heat time contact to catch fire. And then the things on our deck. Again, I always mention the flammable cushions on our lawn furniture, the flammable umbrellas over our patio table. Our welcome mats sometimes are made of that coir material that are the bottom of hanging flower baskets. Those are fine in the winter, seasonal and situational. During the winter, stack the firewood on your deck. In May, let's move it 30 feet away from the house. And then finally, roofs. It's just the most vulnerable part of any house. If you have a cedar shake shingle roof, take out a third, fourth, fifth mortgage and replace it is my best advice. Replacing roofing is expensive, but that will be the best bang for your buck. That is the most vulnerable part on any house. As the video mentioned, asphalt composition, type 1 shingles are the best. A lot of people think that metal's better, but metal actually only has a 1-hour burn rate, and the composition shingles have a 2-hour burn rate. But metal is better than wooden shake shingles. And so making sure that you have the right material on your roof, and then making sure your roof is clean, especially in the valleys. And if you have second story dormers, or where walls meet roof lines, roof to wall transitions, and what we call the nooks and crannies. These are the places where wind tends to accumulate leaves and needles and other dry debris. That's the same place wind's going to want to blow embers during a fire. So paying special attention to those places and keeping those areas clean.
All right, thank you so much. I had a clarification from Gregory about his question. So I think it was just, he saw on the slide that at the orange imminent stage, PSE will shut off power 4 hours before a weather event. So that was what his question was.
Yes, we want to be providing about 48 hours before we're going to utilize the PSPS. So by that time, we're going to be also monitoring the weather. We're going to be having internal conversations, including with the meteorologists and our emergency departments. We collaborate with, the counties, Whatcom, Skagit, everywhere where we work. We have to collaborate with the emergency departments. And then when we see that it's imminent, that the weather event is going to continue, is when we're going to be notifying our customers in that affected area, and we're going to give them the bare minimum 2 days, 48 hours notice. And if the client has a medical device and he has signed off for this type of modifications, for the medical device, we're going to also, on top of those notifications that are going to be given to the general population, so that are going to be affected, our customer outreach managers and also our staff are going to grab the phone and call them directly just to notify them, to give them more time to prepare, because we understand that people that have medical devices might be medically vulnerable and they need more time to get into a safe place. So I hope that helps to clarify Gregory's question or comment, or both.
Thank you. I see that he liked your response. So
Cool.
thank you
Thanks.
so much. We have a different question from McKenna, not wildfire specific, but a good question. What is Ginny's experience working with the Skagit Land Trust in relation to her easement?
We had, I call it 40 acres, but it's 38.9. And originally my husband put somewhere around 20 acres, maybe 17 to 20 acres into conservation easement. Sometime in the 80s, it was one of the very first of the conservation easements in the area. And then we kept it that way. After his death at the end of 2007, I decided to put the rest of the land into conservation easement. We already had the land in open space. And so that, you do, you get some kind of tax break with the open space. And there's also, if you change it into conservation easement, there's no penalty. But also my husband had opened that trail across our property a long, long time ago. And it had become a kind of a traditional way to get up Little Mountain. And so I didn't want to cut that off. And when I wanted to put the rest of the land in conservation easement with SLT, they said, we don't know what a future board is going to do about access to the property. Because frankly, they will inherit the property, the whole property. So they said you must have an easement with the city park if you want to continue that your trail be part of that. So we worked as a 3-part cooperative working on that easement. And I have always found the land trust really, really great to work with. They come out once a year and look at the property. And just recently, there was a neighbor. I don't run my property lines, so I don't know what's going on. And they come out and check it. And so recently, somebody had said they thought a neighbor had encroached upon the line, and I went out with Max, and it hadn't, it wasn't a problem. So I've really, I don't know exactly what the question is about, but in general, I find this to be a really, really good group of people to work with. And I feel really good about the land in this case acting as practically as a part of the city park.
Yeah, thank you so much, Ginny. It's a really special spot, and I'm so glad it's protected. And if folks do have questions about conservation easements or anything else relating to protecting land in Skagit County, do feel free to give our office a call or email someone on our conservation team. Our conservation director's name is Michael Kirschenbaum. But there are lots of great people that can answer your questions over here. We should wrap up to be respectful of our presenters' generous volunteered time. So thank you so much. And I want to just mention a couple of upcoming events before I close out here. So the main, our big event coming up is the annual meeting, and that is for Skagit Land Trust members and their guests. Members include people who have volunteered with us, people who have made a donation in the last 3 years. But if you're just curious about the land trust and you would like to join us, we do have room currently. And you can go to our website, skagitlandtrust.org, to sign up and register through Eventbrite. There are a couple of work parties. We have a wonderful stewardship department that helps to keep the lands that we protect healthy and clear of dumped junk and all kinds of things. They remove invasive species, plant native plants, and do lots of great restoration. So there are 3 work parties here on the slide. And this information is also on our website. So I just want to, again, thank our presenters so much for being here. This is so helpful to just hear all of this great information. And hopefully, you know, as if Zoom cooperates, this is recorded and will be shared on our YouTube channel. And I'll be sending a follow-up email to folks who attended or who registered. And we'll share the link to the recording and any other resources I can find that. And I welcome our presenters to email me any links that they would like shared out to folks. We often just put that in the comments under the YouTube recording on our YouTube channel, so people can have it all in the same spot. Because there were lots of great resources mentioned to help people prepare, do risk assessment and preparation for fire. So thanks again, everybody. And we hope to see you again in the fall when our speaker series resumes. Please follow us on Eventbrite and social media so that you know of our other on the land events. We have more of those in the sunnier months. So, you know, nature walks and all kinds of good things. So we hope to see you in person soon. We know that is often better for people than Zoom, but we've really enjoyed this online speaker series for this year, and we'll see you in the fall. Thank you so much.